A Love to Remember by Gwen Taylor. Copyright at 2020 by Gwen Taylor, all rights reserved. Chapter 1. Ava Voss stood beside the puddle of melted ice cream that only moments ago had been her weekly 2-scoop indulgence of Rocky Road. Now it was as much of a mess as she was. She reached for something, anything, to hold on to, as a familiar wave of panic dug into her chest with a jagged spade. She shakily sidestepped the sticky ooze and almost crashed into her picnic table, her heart in a swan dive toward her shoes, her lungs threatening to collapse. Breathe, breathe, breathe. She sat, struggling to coax herself into smaller gasps for air, fighting the panic and trying to command her body to move so she could see him. But she still couldn't so much as lift her arms. They had lost their strength and hung by her sides like useless ribbons. Breathe, breathe, breathe. It took all she had to weakly raise them and twist herself toward the other tables, because her world had stopped. Right there in the parking lot of the Cove Creek Creamery. He'd just walked right past her, a ghost in navy regalia, with his own cone of Rocky Road being licked like he was afraid of losing even a single drop to the humid heat of a southern fall day. The shock of seeing him, of looking at him now, not 3 yards away, traveled over her skin once more, those icy waves crashing over her in a terrifying tsunami that threatened to crush her quivering heart. 3 years. 3 years since he'd come home in his dress blues and told her he might be gone for a while. 3 years since 3 terrible letters had upended her life and stolen her future. M.I.A. And now he was here, in front of her, real, alive, home. All she needed in this moment was to reach for him, call out his name, but her mind was racing and her lips were silenced. Did his parents know? Why hadn't Clint and Martha said anything? And had her sister known too? Was that why Beth had insisted she come to dinner tonight? She'd call and ask, as soon as she could think properly. But right now, Ava didn't want to blink, dared not look away lest he disappear. All that ran through her mind were fears and fragmented pieces of shock. It was her court. Chief Petty Officer Court Masters, home after all this time. And he was just sitting there, alone on one of the Dairy Creamer's red picnic tables, napkins he held fisted around the cone fluttering in the breeze, his gaze roving over the parking lot, and finally settling on her. He stopped his aggressive licking and lowered the cone. She tried to stand, pushing away from the table, but her arms gave way at the same moment her knees buckled. She barely saved herself from face-planting right there in front of the whole town. Thankfully, no one else seemed to notice her world jumping its axis. But he saw. He rushed to her, taking her in his arms and settling her back on the picnic bench. She licked her dry lips. Court -- I know you. His words stopped hers from forming. That voice of his still froze time, still ran over her skin like a promising caress, still raised the hairs at her nape and shivered down to her bones. But the meaning behind his words drove another wave of ice deeper into her shivering heart. He didn't know her. He was looking at her like she was some bygone memory, a face he once knew, not the woman he'd called the love of his life. Whatever she might have said was erased under the scrutiny of those blue eyes she once wanted to see her every precious secret forever and ever. Now they were clouded, searching, worried. He swallowed, and his Adam's apple seemed to get caught on words he was calling up. I do know you. Keep seeing you over and over, you know, like a movie reel. Here he tapped his temple just above a raised pink scar. Then he reached out, and his hand hovered over her arm, warming her, but still not touching her bare skin. She sat paralyzed at his words, and the hungry look that he gave her. Court, I dash dash. You're her. His hand shook, and his fingers finally grazed her skin in electric tingles. A last whisper broke from him, jagged words she felt on her lips as he lowered his head to hers. You're real. Chapter 2. Chapter 2. The kiss was pure energy. He simply pressed his lips to hers and kept pressing, like everything in him depended on that connection. And for her, it did. Every cell in her body woke to his kiss. Some strength returned to her ribbon arms, and she managed to reach out and touch him, to press her shaking fingers to the medals pinned on his chest. Then she tasted salt right before he released her and held her at arm's length. He smiled and took a shaky breath before wiping at his eyes. I'm sorry. He gulped hard and tried again. I don't even know your name. Ava licked at her own tears that had joined his on her lips. I'm Ava. Ava. Her name sounded like a prayer from his lips. He repeated it in a hushed tone. Beautiful Ava. You don't... She gulped for air and pushed herself up from the picnic table. You don't remember me. He was quick to put his arm around her waist and steady her. I've remembered you for a long time, little pieces like a box of half-developed photographs. But I didn't think you were real. You were there after I woke up, in my mind's eye, I mean. Saw you all the time. I was beginning to believe you were really part of my past when they told me I was probably manifesting the idea of you, an angel who saved me. My angel. He took her hand, and she squeezed his. I'm sorry, I don't know what to think. What happened? How are you here? Medical discharge. Injured on duty. Could have been worse. He shrugged. They always remind me of that. Everyone says it from all up the chain. Could have been worse. And they're right. The men they said I was with in the POW camp, my unit, didn't escape. I can't really remember them, though. I try. Feels wrong somehow, not to remember. He rolled up his pant leg to show her long gashes and deeply wounded scars. I guess that part's a blessing, huh? To forget my time there, what happened to me? A sob racked her body, and Ava pulled her shoulders in on a full-on shudder. Court, I'm so sorry. Oh my God, I can't even begin. Don't. I'm fine. I've healed. Come to terms. It is what it is, and I will get back to normal. He stood straighter at that last bit, as if daring someone to question it. Ava fought for words. I've been so mad at you for leaving me. I was so angry, hurt, and then I'm sorry, I didn't mean... we... She couldn't seem to find the right thing to say amid the emotions diving at her like angry mosquitoes. It's okay. I've been through all the grief, and then some. Let's talk about you. He paused. I loved you, didn't I? He tightened his grip on her hand. And you loved me. She nodded through the tears and tried to rein in the flood, threatening to undo her completely, drown her in her own wave of sadness. We were together for 5 years, 8 now if you count. Anyway, and we talked about getting married. Kids, you know the drill, white picket fence American dream in Cove Creek. I knew you were important. He pulled her to him, engulfing her in his embrace. Her cheek pressed into one of his gold buttons uncomfortably hard, but she didn't care. Court was back. He was alive. Nothing else mattered, except that he didn't remember their life. His chin rested on her head as he held her, soothing her, and murmuring that it would be okay. When she had finally stopped making a mess out of his clothes, she pulled away and attempted to dry her face, even though her hands were barely functional. As always, Court was prepared, a Boy Scout to the core. He handed her a pristine white handkerchief. "Are you okay?" "Yes, thank you. I'm sorry. I think I'm okay now. It's just a shock, and I don't know where to begin, really. I'm so grateful you're okay, that you're here." She kept touching him to reassure herself that it was real, that he was real, and this wasn't one of her dreams. She stared at his profile, remembering how she used to trace his jawline with her fingers, smooth his dark wavy hair that had that one stubborn cowlick, stand on tiptoe for his kiss. Her heart squeezed. "I've wished for this day, wished you back so many times that maybe I'm just dreaming, and you're still missing or I'm sorry I put you through that. I honestly didn't know how to even come back home. Don't know what home is." Her breath caught. "Oh, Lordy. I'm being selfish. I, um," she wiped at her face again. "Your parents. What they must be thinking. What they're going through." Court stopped her mid-hand wringing. "Hey now. They're fine. Martha and Clint, they're just fine. They said there was a lot to tell me. I guess some things just won't do over the phone." "No, I guess not." She hated that he hadn't called them mom and dad like he used to. She guessed everyone was a stranger to him, even himself. "There truly is so much to tell." He nodded, silent. She tried not to think about how his parents kept it from her. Who else might know? She'd think about that later. Her next words hurt to say. "I guess you have things to do then." She watched him look around the creamery where people were beginning to edge away from them, probably at her display of tears. He avoided her question, instead gesturing at the crowd. "Everyone looks like they've seen a ghost." He attempted a grin, but it got lost on the way to his eyes, which were full of concern and something she couldn't quite name. She tried a lift of her own trembling lips. "I know the feeling. Can we go somewhere and talk, maybe? Not out in public like, well, I just got here, and I'm told by my Martha and Clint that I have a lot of catching up to do." She nodded. "You do. So much. I won't keep you. Go." I took an earlier flight, gave myself a day to get my bearings before I had to face anyone. I thought I'd have some time to remember, maybe before. He trailed off on a vague gesture. "It's okay. I understand. I'm not leaving you now." He sighed and held her gaze a moment, then stood up and reached out his hand to her. "Come with me. I have something I think belongs to you." Chapter 3. Chapter 3. Ava stepped out of her Jeep and onto the brick path she'd walked so many times. Maybe Court didn't feel like he was coming home, but to her, this was it. The moment she'd been dreaming of, the feeling she'd been seeking. It seemed like she'd been away for years, when she'd only driven past this morning, and slowed like always, to get a glimpse of the past, to visualize him there, waiting for her. His house, the house that would have been their home eventually, had been kept up well. Clint and Martha had insisted their son would be coming back. They paid to keep the lawn cropped, as short as Court's first buzz cut when he'd enlisted, before he moved up the ladder and outranked his dad, who couldn't have been prouder. They also paid for upkeep on gorgeous landscaping, but Ava had seen Clint here, Martha too, planting in the garden she helped tend, pulling weeds, spending their Saturdays in what she'd finally come to call futility. But she'd been wrong. So wrong. Thank God. Court's deep voice cut through her thoughts. "You left me for a minute there. You okay? Is this too much? I mean, me, being here with me?" Ava glanced up at his smiling face. That handsome face she missed more than air. "Sorry, just thinking. I thought I'd never give up. Swore I wouldn't. But I did. I gave up, Court. Stopped praying even. Except one prayer. Just for a miracle. Any miracle. I lost hope. But your parents, they never stopped believing. They come here and putter around like you're just gone for the weekend and it— A sob cut off her words. She tried again, and the words were hoarse echoes of all the prayers she'd feared in vain. It broke me. Court gathered her to him, soothing her like he used to when he comforted her, and it unleashed the dam she'd built up inside. The force hit her like a snowball, rolled over her with its coldness and weight, and knocked the wind right out of her. Court rocked her. Shh. It's okay. It's okay. I gave up too. But then I had my angel, and that gave me back some hope. He held her there, his hands making circles on her back, lulling her into remembering. Let's go in, huh? What I wanted to show you is in here. He pulled back, took her by the hand, and led her to the front door. She noticed he used the spare key with the little parrot keychain his parents kept behind the porch light. She'd let herself in so many times with it while he was missing, just to feel closer to him. Now he was fiddling with it in his other hand, and the whole thing felt surreal. Never letting go of her, he unlocked the door, pulling her past the foyer and through the pristine living room, back to the master bedroom where suitcases littered the bed and floor. The closet was open, showing his uniforms and suits, his dress shirts that she'd come into this very room over the past 3 years to hold and breathe in to see if some lingering scent of him might make the memory of him clearer, the connection to him stronger. Now that he was here, in the flesh, the spicy scent of his aftershave was balm to her soul. She didn't have to suck in breaths, hoping for a fading memory. Court? He turned from the dresser where he was rummaging through things. You're wearing that aftershave. The one I used to get you. Oh, well, I picked it up when I got back to the States, had a good shave. I guess some things never change. He looked away. She wanted to press him, ask why he'd chosen that scent. Was it somehow linked in his mind? Was there more there, waiting? She watched him looking around the room as if he were lost for a moment. That feeling of wanting to help overcame her desire to let him lead. What is it? You found something of mine? I've probably left something here. I come to remember. You do? He stopped rummaging around in drawers and containers and reached out to squeeze her hand. I must be a lucky, lucky man. Oh yes, I knew it was in here. He let go of her and pushed past her toward the nightstand. There it is. I found it this morning while investigating. He turned, a blue velvet box in his palm. It's yours. Ava's hand shook as she took the small jewelry box. Her heart slammed itself against its cage, and the impact made her whole body quiver in response. Was it? She fumbled opening it and gasped at the sight of the princess-cut diamond in a band of white gold. His name left her lips in a jagged whisper. Court. The thought that this had been their future, the moments stolen from them, the time lost, the life they would have planned and promised together, it too stole from her, chipped at this moment, at his being here with her now. But that couldn't happen anymore. She needed to etch this time into her memory now, to hold on to this strange and fleeting feeling of converging futures overlapping in this time and space. Ava? Yes? She shook her head. I'm sorry. What? I thought maybe it was a family heirloom, maybe belonged to my mother or, I don't know, something, and I'd just kept it in case of, right time and whatnot. But I think I bought it just for you. Read the inscription. Ava took a steadying breath and read, Return to me, always. Romantic, huh? Would have been a good memory. He grinned. that dimple of his reminding her of the last time he'd promised her a future. "When I get back, we'll talk." She nodded, tears crowding her voice. "It's beautiful." His grin faded, his eyes clouding as he nodded too. "It's yours." She couldn't help the words that left her lips at what his words might no longer mean. "Is it?" Chapter 4. Chapter 4. Court avoided her gaze. "You don't have to take it. Well, don't feel you have to. I just wanted you to have it since it was meant for you." Court gave a shrug and sat on the bed, placing his hands on his knees like he was being interviewed and had lost the thread of the question entirely. Seemed right. Ava stared down at the perfect specimen, the shiny band, the letters engraved that captured the love that once was, that still was for her. But then there was him not knowing anything. Where did that leave her now? "Thank you, but—" "No, no but. It's yours. And I am going to remember one day, and maybe on that day, we'll still want this." He stood, closed his hands around hers, shutting the box and pushing it and her away, as he stepped around her and left the room. Ava looked around at the carnage of clothes, and then at the post-its attached to the mirror over his bureau. Little messages like, "Mom likes tulips." "Birthday June 6th" broke her heart into even smaller pieces. It would soon be sand, at the rate it had fractured over and over today. She took a last look and trailed after him, finally finding him sitting in the living room with his head in his hands. "Hey, you okay?" He raised his head, nodded, rubbed at his close-shaved face, and then massaged his temples. Her gaze couldn't help going to the scar there. He caught her staring and touched it. "Surgeries. At one point they say I was a goner, swelling so bad, touch and go after I'd walked, or crawled rather, out of wherever I'd been, held." He didn't say it, but the truth of what he'd probably endured had her heart and her stomach jittering down to knees that wanted to fold under that weight. He cleared his throat. "When they got me to Germany, doctors didn't give me much of a chance." He took a deep breath before continuing. "I was just like any other messed-up American soldier when I arrived, given a cot and not much hope, but they put me in a unit with other sad sacks who hadn't given up yet, and they forced me to get well. A Marine and another SEAL, two hard He grinned. "Two hard cases like you wouldn't believe, always yelling at each other to try harder. And they turned that on me too, day in, day out. Best PT you can get. Sure saw me through a lot of tough times." Ava put her hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to talk about it or anything. But I'm here if you want to, or if you don't, and you just want to sit in silence." His gaze locked with hers for a heartbeat. 2, 3. He cleared his throat and rubbed the back of her hand in gentle strokes that fizzed through her veins. "Then stay a little longer. I have a reprieve until tomorrow. Then I expect to be relentlessly not alone for the foreseeable future. If you want to be alone, it's okay. I'll just—" "No, stay." He sighed and added her name, pulling her hand from his broad shoulder and bringing the palm to his lips. "Stay, Ava. Keep watch with me through the night." He said it against her sensitive skin, and the ripples went through her like charging static electricity, sparking along her skin, raising her hair and her temperature. "Court, stay with me? You don't know what it's like to be so alone, a stranger even with yourself." Ava swallowed hard and sat down beside him, letting her head rest on his shoulder and her hand stay enveloped in his. "Always." Chapter 5. Chapter 5. The quick dinner he'd made smelled divine to her, even if it was the simplest of meals. He carried the food over to the dining area and motioned for her to join him. Over here is better. We can see the sunset. But don't turn on the overhead lights. Court set a plate of scrambled eggs at one of the place settings on the candle-lit table. Don't want to advertise we're here. Right. Ava slid into the chair and lifted her glass at his prompting. The sun had barely started its descent over the horizon of wavy Tennessee hills, and the light still found its way into the kitchen through the sliding glass doors. There would be another hour of autumn twilight before it became pitch black and the fireflies lent their lights to the warm, dark night. Court filled her glass and set the bottle by his plate. Found this wine in the pantry. Had nothing else in it. Some old crackers and ramen noodles. But there's some Dr. Pepper in the fridge I think might belong to my parents. He shrugged. It wasn't my favorite thing. Tried one earlier when I got in. All they had back at sick bay was Sprite, and I kinda got used to that. Ava smiled. Yeah, Clint has an addiction to the good doctor. Me too. He keeps some here for when he's gardening or cleaning out the gutters and stuff on Saturdays. We always had that in common, me and your dad. Gardening, tomatoes, and Dr. Pepper. Oh, I can get you one. I was thinking, wine. We'd celebrate a little. He attempted to rise, and she pushed him back down. Wine's fine, thank you. Ava sniffed the glass. Wow, that's good. What is this? Court handed her the bottle. Ava blinked at the label. Oh, wow, expensive stuff. He gave her a half grin. Must have been saving it for an important event. But now is good too, I can replace it. She put her hand on his arm. Now is very good. He swallowed hard, looking down at her hand, then shook himself and eyed his plate. Eggs aren't bad either, if I say so myself. He scooped up a few forkfuls and followed them with a swig of wine. Yours okay? Yes, thank you. Good thing you shopped for some essentials. She indicated the countertop crowded with 2 6-packs of soda, chips, a dozen cans of soup, and some beef jerky. Not one vegetable. Chips are vegetables. You can see the potato right there on the bag. And speaking of essentials, I can't believe you stockpiled toilet paper for me. All those cleaning supplies, that you're doing too? Ava laughed. You always made fun of my coupon clipping, but it paid off. Good thing I did, or you'd be literally up that very famous creek. Trust me, I'm very thankful for whatever you have ever done for me. He forked some more eggs, and then paused halfway from his plate. And are doing now? I didn't realize how much I wouldn't want to be alone here. He finished the bite, and then looked out the window, where streaks of orange and pink crowned over the trees and dropped off into the warm autumn night. Ava chased a peppered piece of egg around her plate. It bothered her that no one had so much as tried to tell her anything. To be shocked, like she was. Hey, you okay? Not liking the eggs? Oh yeah, good. They're good. Ava glanced down at her phone. No more messages. She'd texted Beth and canceled dinner plans. Beth didn't ask why, which probably meant she knew. She offered to come over but didn't press when Ava said she was busy. Now questions ate at her spiraling brain. Did everyone know but her? Beth's okay text popped up finally. That was her agreeing not tell their vacationing parents anything just yet. Ava couldn't explain it, but she just needed time. Part of her wanted to ask Court more probing questions, but the other parts just wanted to be with him, not push him to talk about what clearly was painful to even voice. They'd had a comfortable evening catching up. He'd stolen her phone to look through pictures of him and them, of the things he'd missed. Her posing with her parents and Beth at her new seed and feed storefront on Lexington, the pictures of her with her arm in a sling last winter, after a tangle with her sidewalk, her vacation to Hawaii, that should have been with him, but was with Beth instead. All her moments that should have been their moments, their past, their future. Not that she wasn't grateful. She took a moment and sent up another prayer of thanksgiving. Thank you for bringing him home. She fixed her gaze on Court as she prayed, incredulous that he was here, like she still hadn't quite processed that it was real. He looked away from the fading sky and caught her staring at him. What? Do I look worse for wear? Older than you remember? Ava cleared her throat. You just want to hear that you're still as handsome as ever. Vain, vain, vain. And yes, you are as handsome as always. She gave him her best sunshine smile. You don't look a day older. You may even be in better shape. Court patted his stomach. I have been working on my abs. Had plenty of time in PT and not much else to do with myself. Except I did learn to dance. He admitted the last part with a devilish grin and a wink. Dancing? Maybe it wasn't really him here with her, she joked to herself. You? Dancing? Like, what kind of dancing? Classics. Good for the body and the brain, apparently. Music and movement. Kickstarts the old melon, according to our physical therapist. Had me waltzing and salsaing like a bloody Fred Astaire. I'm rendered speechless. I never thought I'd see the day. Here. He stood and held out his hand. I'll show you. Now? She sputtered, pushing back from her eggs and slipping her hand into his. There's no place to dance, Court. He slid the glass doors open and led her across the patio and onto the short grass of the expansive backyard. Ava pushed her shoes off at the patio's edge and let him pull her close up against him. He smelled so good. He fixed her hips into place with his hand and rocked his to some tempo only he could hear. Ava leaned into him, resting her cheek against his chest. There's no music. He didn't reply, just started humming, twirling her under the rising harvest moon. Tomorrow, everyone would know he was back. Tomorrow, the spell of simply being with him would be broken. Tomorrow, he would belong to others. But tonight, he was just hers. What are you thinking, Ava? He kept finding ways to say her name, to watch her intently, to touch her. It tugged at her heart, but she wished for the old Court to mockingly call her babe again, because he knew she hated it. Or she had hated it. Now, it would be the sweetest sound in the world. His fingers brushed her cheek and pushed her hair from her face. What is it? Just don't want tonight to end is all. Very selfish of me. She let her hand linger on his chest, and he captured it under his, still moving with her in 3/4 time. I don't either. I want to be selfish. I want you all to myself. They swayed that way, locked in the tableau of longing. Is it wrong to want you to stay with me? Tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. I don't feel so broken with you beside me. His voice dropped on that last revelation. She shook her head. I am always here for you. If you need me. But you don't even know me. I mean, you do, but not like you knew me. I'm a stranger to you. What if you don't even love me at all now? And what if I do? She bit her lip, her heart doing a tango faster and wilder than anything he'd shown her. You can't. I love your laugh. I love that you dropped everything to stay with me, that you have tried to jog my memory, that you stockpiled toilet paper for me, that you like Rocky Road as much as I do, and we both need to make up for lost ice cream, by the way, and I love the way you make me feel like I'm whole. His head dropped to hers. His breath at her ear sent shivers down her spine as he asked, What about you? Do you still love me, Ava? Has it changed for you, if I'm no longer the me you knew? Her voice broke. Nothing has changed for me. Has there been someone else? He went still, his face registering the shock of the possibility like he hadn't considered it before. He stepped back. I mean, I'd understand. I do understand. It's been forever. And now, what do you even have? A broken ma? Court! No, Ava squeezed his hand, pulling him back into the circle of their dance. No one else. Never. And you're not broken. I'm not whole, though. Even if your sweetness and your care have me believing the illusion. But you are. And you've made me whole again, just as you are. Coming back to me. I doubt I've made your life easier this way. He swallowed hard. But forget about me for a minute. I certainly have. He gave a wry, crooked lift of his lips before going on. And forget about everything but what you feel. Deep down, do you still love me? She didn't even have to consider it. I do. She let the words quiet his fears before saying it out loud to him since the first time in forever. I love you as ever. Then that's all that matters. He pulled her to him. All that matters. Is it? I just worry that. It is. Worry is useless, wasted energy. We're done with that. His hand circled her lower back and his voice teased. That you can take to the bank. There is no worry, only taking action. So, I'm taking action and telling you that tonight we're having us a marathon. Amnesiac's choice. Court! She found herself laughing despite the seriousness of his condition and the conversation that had just mangled her heart. He'd made it light again. That was the Court she knew. The ever-teasing, charming, get-his-way Court. And what is it you're choosing? You can't guess? He winked and finally answered. How about we dig into my very healthy snack stash and binge a few 80s movies? Martha gave me a list of my favorite things. Apparently, I like all things 1980s, so I've been dying to see these ghost-busting movies. I just didn't have anyone to watch them with. Ava laughed at Court's serious face. I understand. I mean, who were you gonna call? Chapter 6. Chapter 6. Ava yawned and rubbed at her eyes, which were not focusing on the seed packets she was sorting in the stillness of the early morning hour. Usually, she didn't feel anything but at home in her seed and feed store, even alone at daybreak. But this morning, she felt tired and torn, and like her mind wouldn't let her body relax for a single second. Like that famous pink rabbit, she felt she was beating a drum inside her that thrummed through her veins, jangling her nerves and keeping her perpetually on edge. She hadn't so much as closed her eyes in 24 hours. 80s movies had still been playing on the streaming service's screen at 3 a.m. when Court's snore had alerted her that he'd finally fallen asleep on the couch. She, however, had gotten exactly 0 hours of rest. Instead, she'd watched Court sleep, covered him with a blanket she'd knitted for him during one of her focused project obsession phases, and spent the rest of the wee hours until dawn, coming to terms with the fact that this was real, that the man she was supposed to be married to by now was back. And yet not back, which had her still awake, worrying. Dawn hadn't brought any metaphorical light to shed on what she should do with this new twist of fate, but it had brought him asking her if she wanted to stay with him for his reunion with Martha and Clint. But that had been a hard pass from her. Despite feeling that he truly did want her there, maybe thought he needed her, she didn't think she could take the pain of watching it unfold. The hero's homecoming, a soldier returned from what they'd most feared. Not everyone got this gift. Not everyone got a miracle. And here she was, ungrateful that he couldn't remember, saying it wasn't fair. But it was more fairness than many would get. The thought broke her even more. She had to stop with this line of thinking, but her thoughts kept turning to Court, and if she should have stayed like he'd asked. Was she letting him down? Ava imagined the reunion happening at Court's house right now would probably wring out her heart even more than it had been twisted already. She stared at the seed rack in front of her, unable to focus on the task of alphabetizing the artful packets of heirloom seeds she hoped would be a hit with customers planning a fall garden. Normally, the sight of all the possibilities just waiting to be planted thrilled her and gave her an indescribable infusion of hope for growth and renewal and life. But today, she was beyond their medicine, beyond the reach of most anything. Except the memory of last night, it had torn her heart out, realizing that all they'd ever shared still didn't exist for him. His favorite movies they'd spent many a marathon making fun of were just random entertainment now. He'd not remembered a single bit of the iconic films. When he'd called her name in his sleep and fought at some invisible foe seemingly to reach her, she'd woken him to stop his nightmare, only to find his reality was worse. He'd stared at her and uttered a broken truth, and a fear she'd let stay unspoken. I wish I remembered. What if I never do? But morning light had him cheerful, the night terror seemingly forgotten, more eggs, and a very cold can of Dr. Pepper handed to her like an offering. Her hunger was only for him, though, just watching his face, hearing his voice, for the life that was almost in her grasp. Leaving him had felt like a betrayal, but her heart was wrung out, and she needed a little space to think, to breathe. She picked up the soda she'd brought with her from his place and checked her phone for at least the 50th time since she'd turned the seed and feed sign over to open. She wanted to call him, assure herself he was okay. But Clint and Martha would be there. And obviously, they didn't want her, had excluded her from their son's return. The phone she'd been clinging to suddenly buzzed in her hand, and she let out a strangled squeak. Beth. The text read, "I'm in the parking lot. Coming in, like it or not." Ava didn't bother replying. Instead, she squared her shoulders and waited for the tinkling bells to announce her sister. When they did, she leaned against the counter and tried not to let tears invade her vision. But Beth's outspread arms coming at her had her failing miserably and crying in her sister's embrace until her chest hurt. When Beth finally said something she audibly heard, Ava had spent herself of her bottled-up emotions and subsided into soft hiccups. "You're okay now? Or as good as can be for the moment? Yeah?" Beth nodded for her to make it so, and Ava found herself nodding along. Beth grinned and handed her some tissues. "I'll stock the seeds. You dry your face and tell me all about it. I don't want to talk about." "Then I'll talk." "Okay." Beth spun the rack and deposited the winter hardy greens and radishes in the white metal slots. "I was going to tell you last night. What Martha had called to tell me." "Why did she call you?" Ava took a long swig of Dr. Pepper as she silently dared Beth to spill the truth, not something sugar-coated or bubble-wrapped for her feelings. Beth sucked in a deep breath and rushed out a train car pileup of words. They got word 6 months back that he'd been found, identified, but was badly injured, memory loss, at death's door. And she was going to tell you honest, and I believe her. She was trying to find the right time. And they were dealing with the fact that even after he was found, he might not make it. Then they ran into you and Steve Hartman down at Blue's Cafe a while back. So? Beth slowly shook her head and held up a coaxing hand as if to lead Ava into coming to some foregone and obvious conclusion. "They saw the two of you. There. Dining. Together." "What does that even—" Ava flashed on her lunch with Steve. She'd just signed the final papers, her lease for her store cause for celebration with her realtor. Steve had held her hand through the whole process, had been a supporter and a friend when she'd needed him. She remembered Martha and Clint greeting her there. She gasped. They saw us hugging. Bingo. Bob's our uncle. I told her that was just business, and when she said she thought you'd moved on, what with your new store and Steve, I may have given her a tongue lashing I'll probably have to apologize for. Ava smiled at Beth's insistence on changing the your to our in the saying, just because they had an actual Uncle Bob. It was a small port in a large storm, but it triggered a wave of gratitude for her funny, irreverent, mouthy sister. Oh no, Beth. What did you say? Oh, nothing much. Beth pretended to straighten the seeds she'd just arranged. Just that you'd put your life on hold for 3 years, that you were grieving as much as they were, that you loved Court more than your own life, and that if anyone so much as hinted less, that I'd maybe make them regret it. Beth heaved a sigh and shrunk back, adding, and that even if you were seeing Steve, you had a right to live again. Beth had said the quiet part out loud. The quiet part Ava had avoided touching, like a sore, red, throbbing thumb. And those words hurt to the quick. They brought another round of tears to Ava's eyes, that she blinked back hard and took another drink of her soda to wash them and the burning sensation in her chest down somewhere manageable. I'm not seeing Steve. It was just business. It's okay if it wasn't. Beth faced her and stared for a moment. But I take it you had a reunion with our intrepid hero? What was it like? What was it like? Ava shook her head, trying to wrap her mind around what she couldn't process before. It was like watching someone else living my life. You hear about wounded warriors and soldiers sent home, different. But you don't think that will be me? That's the reality I'll face. You don't think about the hell it's going to be when you're thanking heaven for their return. But, Ava swallowed hard. But he doesn't remember me. Not me. He only knows about his life from what he's been told, what he's memorized. She flashed on the post-its on his bedroom mirror and wondered now if she was on some of them. But he can get his memory back, right? Happens all the time. She tried to force a nod. Yeah, it can happen. You're not too hopeful. I want to be. Hopeful. He knew my face, said he kept seeing me all the time he was recovering, thought he'd made me up. Beth mock swooned. Oh my God, that's so daggum romantic. I mean, it's terrible, but the dude's got amnesia and he still saw you. I guess. She cringed at the eyebrow raise from her sister. Okay, yes, it's actually an amazing thing. The only thing I am holding on to right now. The only thing that does give me hope of him remembering. I'd call it a good sign, sis. A dang good one. And you obviously stayed over there last night. What do you mean? You were wearing that yesterday. This is a different shirt. Same pants and same shoes, and even though your hair is washed, there's no product. Ava ran a hand over her unruly bangs. Who died and made you detective? Just sayin'. Ava blushed. It wasn't like that. Nothing happened. He's always been a gentleman. But I thought maybe. Nope, just old movies and beef jerky. Beth oohed childishly and winked. Be still, my heart. That's something, though. Him wanting you there with him. That's a lot of something. Hope. That's what that is. I don't want to count my chickens. At least they've come home to roost. Count your blessings, then. Ava swallowed back the tears that choked her at her sister's words and excused herself to the restroom. There, in the silence, alone, she stared at the water rushing over her hands until she got the courage to face her own reflection. She looked scared, lost. She needed to be stronger, had to be if she was going to get through this. It was like she'd barely caught her breath. barely knew Court was alive before life started throwing lemons at her faster than she could make lemon bars. His favorite. She grimaced at her reflection. She couldn't help wondering what Court saw when he looked in the mirror. Was he as much a stranger to himself as she was to him? Ava, Beth called to her, dismissing her thoughts to their corners. You have a visitor. Ava splashed her face with cold water and opened the little window above the toilet to get a few much-needed breaths of fresh air before composing herself enough to emerge. Half afraid of who or what was waiting for her, she walked past the bulk feed bins and looked around to the counter where Martha stood fidgeting with the few novel things Ava had placed at the register. Seed tape for the beginningest of beginners, miniature garden tools attached to magnets, free dog and cat treats for owners bringing in pets. Martha dropped a miniature spade on the counter when she saw her, her fumbling fingers flailing in the air above it without making contact. Like her depth perception had just failed her miserably. Ava. Hi, Martha. The older woman simply held out her hand, tears falling down her cheeks. Ava saw her own pain mirrored there and went to her without more hesitation and grasped the hand held out to her. It's okay. It's fine. I'm sorry. We meant to tell you, but it got away from us until we didn't know how to even start that conversation. And what if he hadn't? It's okay, she repeated. It's fine. Her hand trembled in Martha's death grip. I'm sure you didn't know how to deal with this yourself. Martha nodded, still streaming silent tears. Behind them, Beth cleared her throat. Martha, I may have said some things. All is forgiven. Martha quickly brushed Beth's faltering start of an apology aside with a wave of her shaking hand. She searched Ava's face. Isn't it? Ava spoke around the lump in her throat. Yes, of course. All is forgiven. Martha smiled and pulled her in for a hug that was as tight as her grip on Ava's hand. He's going to be okay. You'll see. Ava nodded against Martha's wet cheek. He will. They stood there until Beth cleared her throat again, and the jingle of the bells over the door announced a customer. Martha wiped at her face and picked up the tiny spade she'd dropped. I'll take a set of these. They're just the cutest things. I love your store, Ava dear. Just what the town needed. Thank you, Martha. But you go ahead and take them. On the house. Martha wiped at her face again and nodded, holding the miniature tools to her chest. Okay then. I'll be along. I'll see you tonight. Dinner at our house, not taking no for an answer. You and Beth, too. Court needs to be surrounded by family now, people who knew him. I'm not sure. What's the spread, Martha? Beth's reply overrode Ava's as she winked at them both. I need to know whether to eat before I come. Martha laughed. I'm making pot roast. Court's favorite. Okay then, we'll save up. Martha nodded, fixing Ava with a questioning stare until Ava nodded her agreement too. Then Martha made her way past the customer, checking out the DIY bird feeder kits and out the expansive glass front doors. Beth blew out a breath, and Ava followed after with her own, that she'd felt she'd been holding, lest something inside her break from all the fractures in her composure. She met Beth's gaze. Guess now we have dinner plans. Chapter 7. Chapter 7. Beth followed Ava and helped her start loading a pallet of fertilizer onto a customer's truck bed. Don't be mad. I know I meddled. I'm not mad. Tell your face. I don't know if I can do this. I didn't want to have to find out if I could. To be honest, I almost closed the store today. Wasn't sure I could even face the day. You can. And you can face tonight. And the next day, and the next. Ava blew her insubordinate bangs out of her eyes. Easy for you to say. I'd rather be with him alone, not having everyone watching to see if, I don't know, if he remembers anything, how I'm taking it, if we're still us, if we are going to be us again. I didn't think about that part. Beth leaned against the rusted tailgate of the old green Ford Ranger and fixed Ava with a stare. Sorry about that, but I was thinking about your best interests. It will do you good to see Court in that setting, to normalize him being home, pull the Band-Aid off, and just get to the work. And what if it's not? Then I'll apologize some more. I'm getting very good at that. She grabbed another bag and heaved it onto the truck. And I'm also betting Court wants you there and might not even know how to ask. It was Ava's turn to stare. Silence dragged on a beat before she admitted her fear aloud. And what if he doesn't? What makes you think he doesn't? He hasn't called. Beth loaded the last bag and closed the tailgate, then tapped it twice to let the driver know they were done. The truck started up and drove off before Ava found the courage to turn around and look at her sister again. If he wanted me there, he would have called. Call him. I gave him my number. Girl, the man doesn't know his own name. Cut him some slack. Make the call. You're getting bossy, you know that? I think the word you're looking for is assertive. I think the word I'm looking for is, if you can't say something nice? Beth wagged her finger and grinned. Ava rolled her eyes and closed the rolling door. I'd fire you if you weren't my sister. I wouldn't work here if you weren't mine. Beth slung her arm over Ava's shoulders and walked her back to the break room with a last admonition to call Court. Maybe she should. Ava took out her phone to find she had 3 missed calls, all from Court's landline. Her heart thudded in a sickening beat as she hit the button to call back, but it sprung to life and raced like a thoroughbred when his voice came on the line. Hey, she cleared her throat. Hey yourself. I was worried when I couldn't get you. I must have silenced it accidentally. Sorry, I'm glad you called. It's good to hear your voice, sweet Ava. She nodded, even though he couldn't see it. Yours, too. Really good. I was thinking about last night. Her heart and stomach flipped over each other. Yeah? Best night of my life. She smiled. Ha. 1, it was just 80s movies and beef jerky. And 2, you can't say that with any surety. Oh, I'm sure of it. Trust me, best night of my life. So far, that is. I'll take your word. She heard him pop the top on a soda in the background. I was wondering if you wanted to repeat that sometime soon. During the day, that is. I have a long list from Martha of my favorite movies and such. We didn't even get to that alien flick. And also, there's dinner at my parents' house tonight. They said they want to normalize things. I don't know if you'd want to even go. I mean, you did say you and Dad got on. You don't have to. Ava paced around the room. Actually, yeah, your mom stopped by. She asked too. Oh, good. He breathed out a deep sigh. So you'll be there? You're the only person I feel I know. I meant it when I said I really wanted you with me. That cut at her heart. Of course. Sure. Good. Thank you. He paused. Come here after work, and we'll go together. She nodded again, couldn't help it, and heard her voice come out thick with emotion. I'll be there. He was silent on the other end, then asked, What are you doing now? Nothing. I just loaded some bags of fertilizer. No more customers at the moment. What are you doing? Thinking you should show me around town. Let me buy you that rocky road I owe you, and play hooky with me. Ava didn't have to think about it. Okay, it's a date. Chapter 8. Chapter 8. It was hard to believe she'd found Court here just yesterday. It felt like weeks had passed, and yet only hours, too. Ava drank in the sight of Court striding toward her now, 2 cones held in one of his big hands, a smile on his face, a face she'd so many times feared she'd never see again. Don't let it melt. He handed her one and sat, already chasing tiny rivulets of melting rocky road. They had little wooden spoons for trying other flavors. I had a few, but none beat this. Not even close, my friend. She chased a few of her own melting runoffs. You know what would be even better? Let's say I don't. You tell me. We should take these down to the old mill. Down by the river. Is that a place I should know? Ava nodded. Yeah, it was our spot. We had our first kiss there, and lots of picnics. He reached out and wiped at a spot of ice cream on her lower lip. Picnics, huh? Stolen kisses and potato salad. His gaze was warm enough to melt her and the waning scoop. Ava studied his face. He looked happy, not thinking about anything but the here and now. She leaned over and kissed him, tasting the ice cream on his cold tongue, touching his clean-shaven face, and giving in to the pull of desire to simply melt into him. Court made a show of swallowing hard. I'm gonna need a whole gallon of this stuff to cool off if you keep kissing me like that. Then you should buy 2 to go. He licked his lips and gave his mouth's attention back to his ice cream, but his gaze never left hers. Was it always like this? Between us? So easy and right? Ava lapped at the melting blob her scoop had become, and didn't have to even think twice about her answer. Always. No wonder I couldn't stop seeing you, even when all else faded away. He grinned. You know, I've had buddies I've apparently known since we enlisted try to remind me who they were, and nothing came. My parents today, they felt familiar, but I can't see myself with them, or call up their faces in my mind. But you never left me, Ava. You were always there. How do you do that? He raised his eyebrows. What? Make me feel like I'm the only woman in the world. You've been the only one in mine for a long time. Even though I didn't half believe you were real, she wanted to tell him she loved him. Say it aloud again, but he couldn't say it back, she knew. And that would wound her patchwork heart. Instead, she took him by the hand and sat in silence as they watched the cars and people go by, the world moving on and on and on, no matter how still and quiet and breathless she was. Time seemed to stretch out in a comfortable silence as they sat there. Then the ride to the mill was as quiet, with Court asking nothing, only watching her carefully as if studying her. When they found the path to the river behind the crumbling structure that still had its millstone tucked away inside as a point of local lore, the day had grown warmer, enough that she'd pulled off the blouse she wore over her tank top and tied it to her waist. Court pulled his button-up shirt off, too, his t-shirt revealing tanned arms with a map of scars she'd rather not acknowledge. Instead, she marveled at the ripple of his muscles, the strength he had now, the courage she would not have, showing those scars. He blinked against the sun and questioned her. Is this the spot? He was stopped ahead of her, pointing to a grassy area above the small strip of sanded riverbank where they'd skipped 1,000 rocks. This spot was indeed theirs, where they often lay looking up at the stars, picked bouquets of her favorite bachelor buttons, swam out to the mossy shoals where they frolicked like teenagers. He smiled at her, and she realized she hadn't answered. He held out his hand. I take it this is it. How about we wade in? I don't know about you, but I could use a good swim. You think you can swim? He paused. Are you messing with me? Ava laughed. Me? Not a chance. Oh, that's how it is. I'll remember this. You'll regret mocking me, mark my words." He helped her over a few slick rocks and then held up his hand for her to stop. "Careful here, there's a loose rock. Let me get over it first." She started to accept his outstretched hand again when she realized what he'd said. "How did you know that?" "What?" "About the loose rock." "I—" He looked down at his feet, at the craggy shale rocks they were on. He kicked at the rock and shrugged when it slipped against the others. "I guess I saw it wasn't stable." "Okay." She dared not voice what she had thought, that he'd remembered it there, just as he had always straddled it and helped her across. But maybe it was just his eye for detail, his military training. No use getting her or his hopes up for something so small and probably meaningless. He squeezed her hand. "You okay?" "Yeah, fine." Just trying not to fall. He picked her up and set her on the grassy part of the bank, right across from where the shoals they'd enjoyed thousands of times rushed into the river's calmer flow. "Don't worry, I've got you." She looked deep into his eyes. "Yes, you do." Chapter 9. Chapter 9. Facing the evening with his family had been a 180 turn, back to discomfort and even fear after their day of walking down memory lane. They'd chased their past across town, and for her, reliving it with him, whether he remembered or not, was pure heaven. But part of her was very afraid as they'd crossed the threshold of his family's house, afraid that being there with him and watching him not know things would tear at her joy of simply being with him. And for a bit, she thought her fears were founded. He looked so lost among things so familiar. Dinner had started out as an awkward, silent affair, with everyone seemingly afraid to speak. But Beth had soon put an end to the silence with a few jokes that had gotten Court to laugh, and thus eased the way for everyone to breathe again and settle into talking about nothing in particular. There was no mention of his memory or of the past, just small talk and focus on the good food. She let herself breathe. Things were okay, at least for the moment, and they had Beth to thank for it, for her easy way of making light of hard things. But now she was gone, having made her excuses for an early morning, and the four of them were left sitting in the living room like a Renaissance painting. Court's hand was flat on the couch, brushing up against hers like he was seeking comfort in her presence. She felt bold and awkward and like a blushing schoolgirl when she made the move to give his hand a quick squeeze. Martha spoke into the silence. "How about a movie?" Martha's question startled Ava and had Court flinching as all eyes were trained on him, an unconscious seeking of permission for his approval that kept them all walking on proverbial eggshells. Beside her, Court shrugged, putting his drink down on the cork coaster Martha had reminded him to use earlier. "A movie sounds good. I tried some on your list, Mom." Martha's face lit up. "Oh, well then, good. Yes, what do you want to watch?" Court grinned, his dimple and mischief showing. "I don't know. Got anything I haven't seen?" "I have just the thing." Martha let Court's dark humor go by without response. She hurried over to the entertainment center and quickly scanned the titles. "I think you'll like this oldie, but a goodie. I left it off your list. We wanted to watch it with you. You and your dad always loved watching it." She queued up the DVD and caught Ava's eye as the FBI warning came on. She looked like she was up to something. Then Ava realized why. It was Court's favorite Western, the one he'd know backwards and forwards, if he were himself. Martha gestured for Ava to follow her. "I'll get us some popcorn going." "Ava, care to help me in the kitchen?" "Sure." The familiar sounds of the movie echoed through the house when Clint turned up the volume and the iconic Western theme music filled the kitchen as Martha bustled about, getting bowls and fumbling with a box of microwave popcorn. Martha turned on Ava with a whole quiz bowl of questions in her eyes. The older woman stilled her agitated hands that had just knocked over one of the bowls. "How do you think it's going?" "I think it's going great." "Really? Is he happy?" Ava had no idea how to answer that, so she said nothing. "He's looking to you a lot." Martha turned away, placing the popcorn packet in the microwave. "I'm glad you're here." "He's lucky to have you." Ava took in the unexpected compliment. "He's lucky to have you too. Both of you. You all go above and beyond for him. Always have." Martha nodded with her back still to her, still facing the microwave, where the slow popping kernels began to fill out the bag. "Don't give up on him." Martha still hadn't turned. Time seemed caught between them. The seconds on the microwave counted down. The packet was blown up now, popping faster and faster as the clock burned through the last 10 seconds. Ava had to say something. 10, 9, 8. The kernels were slow again, single pops lapsing into silence when the timer beeped and Martha reached toward the handle. A sudden shout from the living room startled them both. There was a second where they looked at each other, and then they were racing back, unspoken worry etched on their faces. Ava saw it on Martha's suddenly pale skin and knew she looked scared herself. But when they reached the living room, Clint and Court were standing. The movie paused. Clint reached for Martha and waved them closer. Martha looked back and forth between the two men. "What is it?" He knew the lines. Clint sounded out of breath. His grin wobbled, like his facial muscles weren't quite up to holding the effort, and he held on to Martha like a lifeline. "Tell her, son. Tell your mother." Court glanced from face to face, landing on Ava's and speaking as if directly to her. "I remembered." Ava caught the edge of the entertainment center as she took in the words. Court walked toward her, a smile blooming on his face. "I remembered. I know this movie. I know this room. The smell of popcorn." He glanced back at his parents and then fixed on her face. "Ava, I remembered something." "Oh my gosh." Happy tears filled her eyes. "I can't believe it." That's great." He stepped closer and pulled her in for a hug. She squeezed him as hard as he squeezed her, and then Martha and Clint were surrounding them too. She met Martha's gaze over a suffocating arm that she realized was Clint's, and said what her heart was trying to believe. "He's going to be okay." Chapter 10. The night had become the next day before they ended back up at Court's house. His remembering had set Martha and Clint off on a flashcard mission of photos and old childhood toys and items to try to trigger more memory, but nothing else had come. That hadn't lessened the euphoria any of them felt, but it had made Martha insist on a new appointment with a doctor, and more movie nights that Court promised to attend without nailing down a day. He just wanted to go home, he'd said, and that in itself had sparked more hope. Home. Maybe he hadn't meant it the way she hoped, but if he had, and somewhere in his subconscious the idea of home was swimming around and splashing more memory forward, then she had a right to the height her hopes had already soared. The strange sense of déjà vu pulled at her own mind as they walked the sidewalk to his front door. He fumbled with the keys, the little parrot knocking against the door when he finally got the lock to turn. Court looked at her sideways as they walked in. "I guess it's too much to ask you to stay again." She smiled, happy to see the hopeful look on his face. He wanted her there. "Can't know until you've asked." "That how you gonna treat a fella?" "It is." She shrugged out of her jacket and took his to hang up. "Well?" She barely got the coat on the rack before strong arms lifted her up and she was face to face with Court and the raw emotion in his gaze. Stay with me. That's not a question. That's not an answer. Yes. Always yes. She traced his jawline, winding her fingers through his hair, careful of the raised pink scar that made her usually sure fingers tremble over his temple. He let her slide back down. Ava? Thank you. For what? Tonight. And this. He lowered his lips to hers. They stood there after the kiss, holding on to one another in the dark. The moonlight coming through the windows was the only source illuminating the space and letting her see the hunger in his gaze as he pulled back and cupped her cheek. His breath whispered against her skin. I like being with you like this. I know. Ha. Then what don't you know? If you'll ever really come back to me. The thought battered at her mind, but she put on another smile. Not much. That makes one of us. He grinned. Come on, you were thinking it too. No. He lifted a quizzical eyebrow. She shrugged. Okay, sure, maybe it occurred to me. You know what I do know? What? He traced his fingers over her shoulder, down her arm, and stopped at her fingertips. How incredible you are. Now you're just putting on the charm. No, I mean it. Of all the ways I imagined coming here to find the life I left behind, a life I had no expectations for anything like happiness, this comfort with you, is beyond my wildest dreams. He leaned in for a kiss, but then suddenly pulled back, the hand he'd placed under her chin still holding her face to his. Are you happy? With this? Me? Can you be happy? Ava nodded into his hand. Yes, very happy to have you back. This is beyond my wildest dreams, too. I'll do everything I can to make them come true. You've been so good to me. I feel like you're my whole world, and that's dangerous, isn't it? To need someone like you need air, to feel incomplete without them there by your side. She dared not speak. He'd put into words exactly how she felt about him. She bit her lip and blinked hard to keep her composure. Court, yes, I know exactly how that feels. He kissed her hard, pressing, punishing, taking her breath and her thoughts, until he paused for air. I don't doubt that any version of me would love you. He lifted her left hand to his lips. And would want that ring I found right there. Forever. I hope that will be true when you remember. It will be. It's true now, he squeezed her hand. Ava, why can't it be true as it is? Can it? Her thoughts raced ahead of her to a future that was uncertain and scary, but filled with hope, too, and with the incredible man asking what she thought he was asking right now. He held her gaze and asked again. Can it be true now? Spend your life with me, whoever I am. He kissed her hand. Say yes, and I'll never let you regret it, no matter who I become. His grin was back. Or whoever you become, for that matter. What do you say? Ava looked into the eyes of her miracle soldier. Her future returned back to her and said the only word that made sense. Always.